interesting and sometimes funny conversations that I get into about social media are the relationship between so-called digital natives and social media or technology. Because generally, a lot of people assume that people who grew up with the internet or computers or smartphones, Wi-Fi, or kind of were immersed in those devices and technologies from a young age are naturally good at everything to do with technology. And you know, it may be true that people who grow up using a smartphone are very comfortable using a smartphone, they may be familiar with social media, they may be naturally more predisposed or inclined to use it just because of familiarity and experience. But what we talk about in the book is that just because people naturally know how to use social media for their own personal use doesn't necessarily mean they know how to use it for business. And that's a common misconception, right? Is that because you have used something in one domain, you might be good at it in another domain, right? Using social media for a personal use is not necessarily the same as being skilled as understanding how a business might want to use it, or especially how a particular business or industry might want to use social media. So it's interesting to see in that context that just because someone knows the infrastructure doesn't mean they know how to use it in a particular capacity or for a particular purpose. So we see sometimes that people think that naturally a social media expert should be a younger person. Not always true. But also that younger people should have a natural capability, should instinctively know how to use something, especially for business. And we see that like with anything to do with, computers or IT. Just because someone knows how to use a computer doesn't mean they know how to use an Excel spreadsheet or a statistical program in a business case or in a business circumstance. So you really have to accommodate that and understand that when you're doing training and onboarding and developing people to work in a role that either uses technology or uses social media, especially because you need to make sure that you can communicate the particular business and the business's culture and approach to social media and communications, both internally and externally. Because just because someone's used Twitter doesn't mean they know how to use Slack or a different kind of business communication tool effectively in that context. So there may be some natural advantages, but there's also a certain amount of training and upskilling and learning and onboarding that needs to go on to make sure that people understand how to use social media effectively in a business capacity and for your business capacity in particular. And you can't necessarily assume people will understand that or know the kind of cultural nuances within the business that are going to be necessary to use it effectively. So that kind of training and communication and reinforcing of culture is really important, irrespective of someone's age or skill level or familiarity with social media or technology.